Wikileaks this week, or this past week. Another day, another week, another horrible leak about SHAFTA, the Southern Hemisphere Asian Free Trade Agreement, also known as the Trans-Pacific Partnership. And I wanted to get Lori Wallach on, the Executive Director of Global Trade Watch, and just absolutely one of the geniuses on this topic, the author of The Rise and Fall of Fast Track Trade Authority, citizen.org/trade, the website. Lori, welcome back. Thanks for joining us. What have we learned now as a consequence of this most recent information?
Well, the leak showed us that the Trans-Pacific Partnership, the TPP, would make it easier for corporations to offshore our jobs and to push down our wages by putting us in direct competition with workers in places like Vietnam, where wages per hour are less than 60 cents. It also showed us that the TPP would expose an even wider set of government actions, policies, court rulings related to the environment, land use, energy policy, financial services, to attacks by foreign corporations that could drag the U.S. government in front of a international tribunal comprised of so-called judges who are highly paid corporate attorneys who could demand that we, the taxpayers, pay these corporations tax dollars for policies they claim violate the new investor privileges the agreement would give them, and that they say undermines their expected future profits. So
let me try to translate that into, or not translate, but make an example in kind of straightforward English. If not that what you said wasn't, but for example, if Comcast doesn't like my use of their service, or has some kind of a beef with me, or thinks that whatever, and they say, I'm going to sue you, I would say, fine, I'll meet you in court. I'll hire a lawyer. We'll meet in court. And they say, no, I'm going to sue. We're going to sue you in a court that we set up, and our lawyer is going to be the judge.
Sort of like that, but it's actually any individual foreign investor or company gets elevated to the same level as the entire U.S. government, as a sovereign nation state. So here's a real example, because there's a smaller version of this in NAFTA. Okay. Eli Lilly Corporation, big pharmaceutical corporation, doesn't like the patent policies Canada applies to medicines. As we all know, medicine is less expensive in Canada, and one reason why is Canada's policy requires a patent holder, someone who has the monopoly right to sell exclusively at any price a medicine or other product for a period of time. Anyone who gets one of those patent monopolies, their product actually has to meet the promises that they use to get the monopoly. Seems fair enough. Mm-hmm. Well, two of Eli Lilly's medicines that they'd made promises for to get those monopoly rights proved not to actually meet those promises. So Canadian court said, sorry, your patent can't go forward. You have to basically start allowing generic versions of this medicine. You can't have a monopoly.
Are you talking about medicines where they just slightly tweak a molecule or something so that they say this is a brand new medicine, but in fact it's not?
This had to do with whether or not the medicine actually performed for the use that the company claimed.
Really?
So the Eli Lilly basically said, well, under NAFTA, we're a foreign investor with special profits, so you can do that for your domestic companies, but you can't do that for us. And they dragged the government of Canada, the government of a sovereign nation, in front of a tribunal. I think this one's under the World Bank, but both World Bank and United Nations tribunals are allowed. And it's 3 private sector attorneys who are picked off a list, no conflict of interest rules. These guys rotate between being the judge and suing governments for companies. And what Eli Lilly is demanding is $500 million for their future lost profits had they been able to keep their patents and sell the drugs at the higher prices.
So they get the $500 million even though they don't have to?
Correct. That would be what would happen if this tribunal rules, and there's no outside appeal. So right now, the United States has a handful of agreements that has that crazy system. It's called Investor-State Dispute Settlement officially, ISDS.
Right.
And if you go to tradewatch.org, you can see our analysis of the leaked TPP text that has the ISDS system. The version in NAFTA is narrower, and, the U.S. has it in some other agreements, but it's mainly with countries that don't have much investment here. They're developing countries that don't have a bunch of big companies that are set up shop here.
Right.
If TPP went into effect, Tom, there would be 9,000 additional companies that would have new rights to drag the U.S. government in front of these corporate tribunals and raid our treasury.
Wow. What possibly could motivate the Obama administration, the entire Republican Party, and a good chunk of the Democratic Party to support this?
Well, actually, it's a very good question. What the heck could motivate the president and the administration?
Yeah.
But most Democrats are against this.
Right.
There was a great expose in the New York Times that quoted, Democrats from the progressives, like obviously Senator Elizabeth Warren, but to more conservative, moderate members like Senator Schumer. And the Cato Institute is against this. They see this basically as a subsidy for offshoring by lowering the risk premium of taking your investment to a low-wage country, distorting the market, and also they don't think it's very good for the rule of law to have these extrajudicial tribunals set up with just one privileged class of users, multinationals. A lot of conservatives, from Tea Party activists to conservative members of Congress, and conservative jurists don't like investor state. The folks who like it are the big multinational corporations and the politicians in both parties who they have on the party list.
Right. In other words, the people they pass the cash out to.
For instance.
Yeah, for instance. So, wow. So this new piece, this adds to a body of knowledge that we have about the TPP. Can you summarize the rest of that body of knowledge? What is the state of knowledge or state of the art or whatever the phrase would be of what we know right now about TPP?
So we know the TPP has in it basically everything that was damaging from the North American Free Trade Agreement, NAFTA, or from the U.S.-Korea Free Trade Agreement, the most recent one, that in just 3 years has increased our trade deficit with Korea by 84%, and the increased deficit, if you plug it into the formula the administration used to say it would create jobs, the real number, the real data shows is it equates to as if we'd lost 84,000 jobs, not gained the 70,000 they promised using that formula. So with that as the background, everything that was bad in those other agreements is in TPP, plus there's some new and worse stuff, like a more expanded version of the corporate tribunals, or there are provisions in there that could undermine internet freedom, sort of like what was in SOPA and PIPA, the big sort of Hollywood try and limit internet freedom policies that were killed in Congress, but have served like a zombie, come back in pieces of them, have come back in TPP. So if none of this sounds good, and it's not good for most Americans, then the thing we all have to do is make sure Congress keeps its constitutional authority over trade. Because this TPP, basically having to walk through Congress in broad daylight on a normal speed, is not going to become the law.
In other words, no fast track.
No fast track.
Okay, Lori, once again, what was the website you recommended?
Tradewatch.org, and we could start seeing action on fast track as soon as the week of April 13th. So, folks, all your members of Congress.
Okay, you got it. Lori Wallach. Thank you, Lori.
This is the Thom Hartmann Program.
Tradewatch.org. Get over there, check it out. We'll be back.